Welcome back, everybody. I'm J.R. Flatter, and this is our latest session on the secrets of government contracting. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Joe Cabell, who is our Chief Strategic Officer at Flatter Incorporated. How long have you been here now, Joe?
4 years.
4 years. Wow, time flies. So he's our distinguished guest of the week. And as always, when we get started, just tell us a little bit about yourself. And I'll remind you, we're talking to our peers. So if you think about how you're going to answer any of the questions, what would you say to your peers in the government contracting industry? What advice might you give them? What insights might you give them? So I'll let you take the stage and tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you do, and whatever else comes to mind.
Joe Cabell, retired Marine. I currently support business development, which consists of proposals, capture, writing, pricing, recruiting for Flatter.
Yeah, that's a big job. You mentioned like 4 or 5 different full-time jobs, so you're probably a pretty busy guy, huh?
I think so.
And how we probably don't want to share how many requirements you have in source selection right now, but it's a pretty big number that you're waiting to hear back on.
It is. And we still have a lot in proposed, believe it or not.
Yeah. And somebody told me a few weeks ago you were going to go into an operational pause. How's that working out for you?
It's not. I tried. I'm not even trying to do this. And people still call me, the government, other companies. Things are falling into our lap without trying. And it does take a lot of work, even when they fall in your lap. And so that's why I'm here early. I stay late and just trying to get it done.
So talk to us about building a successful pipeline. So you say things like things are falling into our lap, but I bet there's years of relationship building that went into now having things falling into your lap. So just talk to us about how, if I'm going to start a government contracted business, I'm going to hire a guy such as yourself, how is that person going to build a pipeline of business for me?
Great question. So pipeline is really just the first step. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, where a lot of people that just start may have some difficulties, which is there is hundreds of thousands of opportunities. When I mean opportunities, contracts. And any small business, you only need 0.00001% of those opportunities to be successful. So it can be pretty overwhelming. So based on your company's capabilities or your capabilities, start there. And then, so finding the opportunities, believe it or not, about half the people in this industry have difficulty finding. But if you do find one, then your work really just begins. Like that's just, finding one is great, but then you have to work to win that. And in order to win that, you have to position your company to be best positioned to win the work. And a lot of people think this is sales, and it's not sales because the government's already going to award somebody the contract. They already have money. They're already going to pay somebody. They've already told you in writing they have a problem. They want somebody to fix their problem, either staffing, software development, a training program, whatever it might be, or they're buying helmets or equipment. The challenge that you have is how do you position your company to be the one awarded? Mm-hmm. And that's where there's a lot of art and science that goes into that. Sometimes it's a lot of science, sometimes it's a lot of art, sometimes it's a mixture of both. And that is really the challenge. And so you've got to look at, am I competitive for this? How do I get it? And there's a lot of things that go into it: pricing, recruiting, writing, past performance, teaming with other companies, meeting with the customer, making sure you understand what the customer's issues are. How do you solve those issues? What is the customer looking for? So I think that's really the challenge in this business. That's a lot to take on. And a lot of people will approach this in a, well, hey, it's software development. We do software development, so we can bid it.
Hmm.
Well, it's not exactly that easy. What kind of software? Have you done it elsewhere before? Have you met the customer? Do you know what the customer's 5-year plan is? Are they transitioning to something else? If so, how are you going to solution that? How are you going to incorporate that? And so those are the challenges with every opportunity that I think you'd have to look at.
So to hear you talking, we break our business down into 5 phases. Identification phase. So the thousands, like you said, hundreds of thousands of opportunities, you can easily identify those. And then you qualify them. Are they real? Is there real money there? Can we meet that need? Can we build a team? And then, so you qualify it. And now it sounds like what you're describing for me is this long capture phase, which is if everything remains the same as we know it right now, we're going to bid on this work. And now what do we do to make ourselves as competitive as possible and hopefully more competitive than anyone else could be? And so there's things like win themes, differentiators that we begin identifying, and as you describe, maturing them. So building a team, hiring the right people, meeting with the customer, even meeting with the contracting officer to help perhaps craft the language of the RFP, or and all of that's allowable within the Federal Acquisition Regulation up until the point of publication of the RFP. So talk to me a little bit more about, it's been my experience, I don't want to sound like a second lieutenant, but it's been my experience that that's a 2 to 3 year capture cycle between identification, qualification, capture, and then eventually propose and win. 2 to 3 years of hard slogging. So talk to me a little bit more about that, if you would.
It can be, and generally that 18 months to 3 year window is for very large opportunities. And in that case, you really have to do a lot of work. And I'll just give some examples, like we're looking at some overseas opportunities that will require 2 years of that kind of capture. And you're probably thinking as a neophyte, what in the heck could you be doing for 2 years? Well, for example, it's in another continent, and you have to have housing, logistics, warehouse, radios, internet in about 40 different countries and about 40 different cities, vehicles, where to get the vehicles fixed, maintained, and all of that information has to go into your proposal. So the only way to do that is actually do all the research and to get it. You can't just make up these companies, you can't make up resumes, you can't make up these things, because you have to back it all up with real pricing and all those, and that takes a lot of time. And it's not just picking an internet company, it's picking which ones, like which one they want.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that has been supporting maybe the embassy previously, that's known, that's preferred. So you got to do all that kind of research. And so that's what all takes time. And so I think that's what can take time. Now, on the other hand, and you just heard me talking about some things that are falling in our lap. So obviously here at Flatter, we do a lot of leadership training development, curriculum development. We have a lot of generals and admirals retired on our roles, a couple former ambassadors. And so sometimes there's some very small opportunities that will present themselves at the last minute. For example, hey, we're looking for an African expert with a PhD to do this. Companies, please respond if you can do it. Oh, gee, hey, we have some of those people right now available. Yeah, we can respond and put a price on it and submit. And those, there aren't a lot of capture, but when you get to a certain threshold in business where you have a number of people on your staff with certain expertise, and there's opportunities that fall within that area of expertise, it kind of becomes a snowball effect for you in those areas. And so those are things, once you get, 10, 15, 20, I think we're up to 26 contracts right now. Once you get to that certain level, don't require as much capture because you're already an expert in those areas and can submit pretty easy and be very compelling to your customer.
So if I'm a new guy or gal starting out in this business, I've hung my shingle, I've gotten my registration in SAM, business license, maybe I've got a facility clearance so I can do classified work. And I see an opportunity that I'm interested in. What do I got to do to get on your team?
There's a number of ways you can get on a team, but the first and foremost, I tell everyone, be a some type of value. And the way you can do a value is any number of things. First and foremost, you know the customer and you know the hot button issues. Okay, if I don't know the customer, but I have that experience, you tell me the hot button issues, you're on my team. Or, hey, you can recruit. It requires a lot of resumes, recruit. Or you have the technical solution and can write. Or you have past performance in that area. Or you have past performance with that customer. So I always tell people there's multiple ways for you to provide value to get on a team. Even if you don't have the past performance, customer intimacy. I've done it a number of times where I said, hey, I'll write for this, put me on your team. Hey, I'll give you all the resumes, put me on your team. So there's ways that even without some technical expertise, but it all comes back to the same thing, which I'll get to, which it would be the end state. And if there's one point I want to drive home, all of this requires work. Work filling out matrices, work writing, work researching, spreadsheets, writing 50-page proposals. It just is a lot of work. And some people get into this business thinking, oh, it's just let's go grab a cocktail and do some business development at the trade show. And yes, that's part of it, but that's just the first step in about a 10-step process. There's about 9 steps you need to do after that that will take a lot of work. And so if I tell anybody about this business, and again, my guess is most businesses like this, right? It just takes a lot of work. People don't just hand you stuff. And I tell people all the time on our website, at least not today, nobody just clicks on it and puts their credit card and buys from Flatter, right? Or any of these kind of companies. We have to write a proposal. We have to gather resumes, put pricing together and submit in order to get work. So it's a lot of work to get work.
Yeah. Yeah, in economics, we call it the curb to entry. It's a very high curb to entry. And to answer part of my own question, whenever anyone asks me, how do I get on your team? You have to have at least 2 differentiators, 2 different kinds of value, because if you have just one, there's you and 1,000 of your friends that have that same differentiator. So a socioeconomic status, that's one. A knowledge of the customer, that might be a different one. A knowledge of, I've done this exact same thing for another customer, might be another one. But you need to bring at least 2 differentiators, or there's just too many other choices for you, because you build our teams. You probably have people calling you all day, every day saying, hey, I know this customer, this is a lock. How many times have you heard that? I have the guy.
A few. But most of the people who call me, hey, we do Oracle development here. I want on your team. Well, do you know the customer? No. Do you know that? No. Okay, so you do Oracle development for Coast Guard, but how does that relate to this Army Oracle development? Does it? Make sure you do it. So most of the people who call me do that because they're still in the first step. Oh, hey, we do Oracle development. We do this. So we found this. But as I keep saying, there's about 9 additional steps after you find it to kind of go through. And I usually, Shipley's written a book on this and he put some numbers in there. And obviously based on my own experience, for about every 10 or 20 opportunities you find that you think you're a good fit for, you probably bid on one that you really are a fit for. So that's a lot of research you're doing on things that never come to fruition. And then for every one you bid, you're lucky if not lucky, but if you're good, you'll win about 1 out of every 5 you bid. So you can see that in order to win one, you've really had to look at anywhere from 30 to 100 opportunities before you get that win.
Yeah, and what you're saying also begs for a very strong discipline up front. Because of that 100,000, if you chose to chase all 100,000, you'd win none of them.
Exactly.
There's a book that I always recommend called Never Eat Alone. And it's about building and sustaining relationships. And he says in that book, to make a relationship with someone, you have to have a minimum of 3 engagements with them. So if you look at every opportunity you pursue, times 5, because there's 5 constituent groups, building the team, your own team, teammates, the customer themselves, the contracting office, and for most of us, the small business office, that's 5 times 3, 15 conversations for everything you choose to pursue. Well, do the math, and if you're chasing 5, 10, 20 things, you've got 20 something things, contracts right now. So how many conversations did it take to win those? It's in the thousands. So discipline up front is just very, very important. So this is great information, so thanks. One of the requirements of being a guest on this podcast is you got to tell us one of your secrets. And I know you say you don't have any, but I know you have hundreds of them. Tell us the secret of your success.
Well, yeah, I've been thinking. I don't really know. I'll just go back to hard work. Like in every category, it's you got to get the relationships, but then you have to do the matrices. You've got to do the writing. You've got to do the recruiting. You've got to understand the customer. You got to use deductive reasoning to try to strategize on how to solution that, what is best for the customer. Because sometimes the customer doesn't tell you exactly what they want. Sometimes it's very nebulous. So there's creativity involved. And you just have to persevere, because sometimes your creativity will hurt your proposal, as has happened to us on a couple occasions where we knew what they wanted. We were very creative and offered up very good solutions, and they would tell us, hey, that's not what we want. And there's been other times where we've written similar to different customers, and they've jumped up, down, said, yeah, that's exactly what we want. So it's just hard work. I mean, and again, you could probably say that about any business, but this one really especially is hard work. Things just don't by themselves get across the finish line. And, that when these proposals are due Friday at 12 noon, there's 100, maybe thousands of things that have to go into it. Pricing, contracts, reps and certs and forms, and not to mention resumes and pricing, and some of these, we've done a proposal not too long ago that was 450 pages. So they can be pretty encompassing. So it's just hard work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. All of the methods that you talked about are requirements to be successful, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to sweat equity. Are you willing and able to do what it takes to drag that proposal across the finish line? All right, well, thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
Be a lot of value. So the last thing I'll ask before I let you go, and thanks again for being here. I know you got 1,000 other things you could be doing. Who are 2 or 3 other distinguished guests you think we should have on the show? Again, reminding you that our peers are our audience. So who would you want to introduce to your peers as a potential mentor, teaming partner, customer?
It has to be a business owner or someone, who does what I do, or either.
Any of the above.
Okay.
Not necessarily a business owner. That's too small a circle.
Yeah, so some of the people who've been very successful, Hillary Coover, she's tripled the size of her company as a BD in the last year and a half. Dr. Denise Bacon, one of our joint venture partners. She's obviously doing some great things with STEM, National Science Foundation, and a lot of things that are closely aligned with us. So she's terrific at relationships. So she'd probably be a great person to talk about her relationships at DITRA, National Science Foundation, and other education places. Rich Hansen, the owner of RMGS, he's got a lot of work overseas, a lot of neat, interesting things, and be interested to hear his take on how he wins business, because he does do it a little bit differently than me. He does a lot more relationships and is very intimate with a lot of customers and a lot of partners to understand what they need. Trying to think who else.
That's enough. I appreciate it. We'll definitely capture those 3 names and send out invitations to them.
Okay.
All right, sir. Thanks
All
for your
right.
time and have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye, JR.